you so much for coming on the show today. I mean, it's great to finally meet you in person because this is how we meet each other in person nowadays through Zoom, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Sure. Thanks so much, Chris, for having me. Really happy to be here. My name is Zach Rattner, and I am one of the two founders of Yembo. We are a computer vision company that provides services to property insurance and moving companies.
Mhm.
And we build state-of-the-art computer vision technology to be able to accurately assess what's inside someone's home for the purposes of quoting a job. So we are taking the same kind of technology that is powering things like self-driving cars and drones, but we are going in a direction where we didn't see a whole lot of other folks going into. And it's been a really exciting journey over the last 7 years or so.
Very, very cool. So how did you get into this space? I mean, it sounds, people keep saying it's kind of like the whole micro thing where there's like, there's all these jobs that are out there. They're not very sort of exciting sounding, but there's tons of opportunity in those spaces. How did you find out about this space? How did you get into it?
Sure. I wish I could say I did this like amazing top-down market analysis and found a gap, but I'm an engineer by training. Never went to business school, but my wife was working at a moving company. So what was really interesting was, as an engineer, I was working in AI computer vision technology, and I'd come home from work and she'd tell me these stories about how smooth things could go if jobs were estimated correctly, and the host of issues that can come up if things are not estimated correctly. And at the time, there was this academic benchmark called ImageNet, and you can think of it like a 1,000-way multiple choice test, where universities, corporations would submit these algorithms basically to compete in the competition. And so I might hold up a picture and say, what is this of? And the answer might be golden retriever or barn or dinner plate, just so many, about 1,000 different categories. And what had happened what this paper Microsoft submitted a few years ago was, for the first time, the winning submission beat out an educated human. So for the first time, identifying objects and images was actually better for a computer to do it than a person. And that was right around the time where I realized, like, this isn't going to just affect self-driving cars, even though that is a huge industry. It's also a very competitive one with a lot of entrenched players, but this is going to affect like everything. So then we found an opportunity in the moving industry, is where we started, to provide some consistency, give actual pictures when you're giving an estimate out. And I think this is really the key with AI, is the key difference between a Yembo estimate and a traditional moving estimate is a traditional one you can do like on a piece of paper or with Excel. It's just like a list of this item, this quantity, this item, this quantity, so on and so forth. But with Yembo, we give pictures. And we knew we were onto something in the early days when one of our first clients saw it and they just said, oh my gosh, how do you have the time? Because they're thinking about, like, someone's going through and like painstakingly taking photos of every single item. A typical home has like 300 or so different items. But I feel like that's the real power of AI, is that there are workflows now that the cost to do them has come way down, and they might have been totally infeasible to do it beforehand, but because AI is doing it, it becomes feasible now, and the output is something that is faster and it's something that's better. But I feel like we're going to see a whole lot more of those going forward, those kinds of situations of how on earth, who has the time to do that? Because the expectations that we built up over years haven't really factored in for the pace of technical innovation that's happened in the past couple of years. So I think that's probably a sign of more things to come down the road.
Well, obviously AI has the time to do all that, right? But I guess how does it actually work? I mean, do you take like do you stand in the middle of the room, you just put a thing on some kind of a 360-degree camera on a tripod and then just leave the room and then let it's do its thing? Or how does it actually work?
I probably could have saved 2 or 3 years of R&D if I was able to pull that off. But a key difference,
it's not one of those science fiction-y, you can see like drop a tiny little device in the middle of the room and you see this like laser scan scans the entire room and has the entire inventory in like 3 seconds. No, it's not like that.
It sounds great. I unfortunately don't own one of those. If I had to guess, you might not have one either. And that's what really makes it challenging, is when you send somebody a link, you have no clue what they're on. There are north of $1,000 high-end phones. There's also $20, $30 phones you can buy. So the process is pretty simple. Customer gets a link and they click the link in their browser. They can kind of just walk around their house. Typical 20-ish seconds per room is about what is enough to cover most of them. And then we do all the heavy lifting on the back end. So the customer just has to take a quick video, and then the AI gets processed immediately. And within a couple of minutes of the person finishing, the mover has not just like the video, but it's summarized. And here's all the pictures, here's the images, here's the items that we see in it, here's a volume and a weight estimate. It's kind of shrinking down maybe 60 to 90-ish minutes of human labor to a couple of minutes, and then bring it back to the mover. So they still have the ability to build rapport with the customer. They still have the ability to have the final say. But a lot of the tedious work, like you can see this room behind me, I've got books on the shelf and things like that. You don't have to count how many boxes that stuff's going to take in, or if you're on the phone where you can't even see, you may have to ask the customer, hey, how many boxes is it going to take to pack your living room? Like, you may as well roll dice if you're going to do that. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
they don't know.
So you just stand. So what do you send a link to the person, and do they stand in the middle of the room and like take a video, or is it no more complicated than that?
That's about it. Yeah. And I think to make that work though, like a lot of machine learning algorithms, it's all about the data. So to make it work in these situations, we had to collect lots and lots of data and fine tune our algorithms based on that. But the interesting part, and if you've deployed any kinds of machine learning algorithms, I'm sure you'll see this, is you can ask people, you can be as prescriptive as you want and ask people to go in particular patterns. But at the end of the day, people record videos all the time. They have a particular way about doing things. So I think we started off maybe with big egos, thinking like I can influence 95% of customer behavior. And then we realized
that's good.
But finding a way to make it work and make it easy is interesting, because we're not in the industries that are going to make things like go viral and do it every day. Like, you're not going to love your Yembo experience and then go move 10 more times. Like, you may launch times a day, but you're not going to go do this. So it's really key to like nail that out of the box experience. I can't make you like read a 50-page PDF explaining on how to stand in the room and move correctly. We just let people go for it. And we have algorithms that'll monitor and say, speed up, slow down, turn on a light. I feel like maybe.
Oh, so it does it in real time. I thought you would actually have them film a video or shoot a video and then send it to you guys, and then you'd process it. You actually have it processing and commenting at the same time as people are walking through the home.
Yeah, we do a certain amount in real time. So the full blown inventory list, that takes about a minute, so we can't do it in real time. But the real time feedback in terms of if you're moving too fast, this is another key lesson that we learned, was the AI is awesome, but it's not magic. So if you were to look at a video yourself, if you can't identify what's in it, then it's probably a fool's errand to try to train an algorithm to do it. We had one in our early days who already disconnected their electricity because they were moving, and all the videos that came back were just like pure black. And when we call it, I can't process this. They said, oh, I thought you said your AI can detect what's there. Like, yeah, if I can see it, it's there. But
if it can see it, that's right.
Exactly. It's very powerful, but it's not a magician. And I feel like that's an area that is maybe a bit misunderstood if you read like tech media and things like that, where people seem to think that it's sentient and that it's able to do all these crazy things. And I think the pace of innovation has really picked up, but at the end of the day, it's code and algorithms and math and science, and it doesn't have ambitions or desires. It just starts on line one and runs to the end.
Exactly. It's kind of like, I mean, I think we've been spoiled by all this sci-fi and detective shows where they have these giant screens and they go enhance, 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 enhance. It's like, you don't have enough data to zoom in that deep, right? Yeah. I mean, a lot of that stuff does not exist in real life.
Exactly. Yeah, you can invent something that maybe looks like that, but to actually make it real, yeah, I feel like movies, it's a blessing and a curse. It does pique the public's interest and makes people kind of care about the things that we're working on that maybe would be not palatable otherwise. But at the same time, I feel like we have this obsession with society to think about like Terminator and 2001: A Space Odyssey. So when people hear AI, they don't usually think cool stuff. They think adversarial situations. And like it's causing a lot of misunderstanding, and maybe causing people to even overlook some awesome opportunities that would otherwise come up. I mean, in our product, if you log in, we spent a lot of time to make it easy, right? Because you're selling in an industry that probably hasn't used the technology before, and if it takes you like 2 days to learn how to use it, you'll your interest will maybe wane. I think
Oh yeah.
ChatGPT did a great job, right? You log into ChatGPT, it looks like texting, and like you're using it. You maybe never used AI before, but that kind of out of the box experience is really important,
Hmm.
because I feel like done correctly, AI should allow humans to do bigger, better things. They don't replace humans. Like at the end of the day, you couldn't buy moving services or property insurance services from Yembo if there's no humans in the loop. It's just the humans are freed up from counting, annotating every different item, that they can focus more around like tailoring the service to your preferences and building rapport with you and all these kinds of things that are very difficult to automate,
Yeah.
possibly never able to be automated.
But how accurate is it? I mean, when you go in there and you do the estimate, and then movers actually come in and they move everything around and they move it, how, like, are you very, very close to being super accurate, or is there like a big variance there?
Sure. Yeah. So in the industry, accuracy is usually thresholded. If it's 10%, within 10% of the weight, it's considered okay. And if it's past 10%, it's considered not okay. And in our deployments, we see most folks hovering around like 4% or so. So it's
Mm.
a pretty good margin underneath. But there's a lot of different causes. I wish I could say there was like one kind of holy grail problem that we solved that got us there, but it was really a lot of different things. Oversized ambitions is probably the number one cause, where if I ask you 30 or 60 days before you move, like tell me everything that's moving, people will say, oh, don't worry about that, I'll have sold it, or this is, I'm gonna have a garage sale, that'll be gone. Then the day of the move comes and it's all still there. So we found like making it easy to make updates is really important. um, Also, not all errors are created equal. We had a silly day in our early days where Yembo said that there were about 45 trash cans in somebody's living room. Video when the mover complained about it, and they were right, because it was trash day, and we
Oh man.
like garbage can, recycling bin, garbage can, recycling bin, and then we
Not a
had
good day. Not a good day to take in a video of your home.
exactly. But I mean, it's valid, right? I mean, like you don't want software that works 6 days out of the week. You want it to work all the time. So
Yeah.
it sounds really like silly, but as humans, you would just understand, oh, that's outside of the room. But algorithms don't know it. They see it, they put it up there. So we had to actually train the AI to detect windows. I don't know
Mhm.
anyone who's ever actually moved a window, but we did that just to not care about the stuff inside of it, because that means that you're seeing things that are outside of the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
These
Well, how
are
does it do things like for example, behind you, you have all these statuettes. I mean, how does it know that that's stone, that's metal, that's, I mean, is it able to suss that out, or does it just look at the size of it and go, well, I think this can't be any heavier than, 50 pounds or something like that?
sure. So there are certain limitations to what the technology can do. Like I would have mentioned before, is if the person looking at it can't tell, then the AI won't be able to tell. Now we've done lots of these. Like we have millions of videos that we've looked at. So for things that are kind of difficult like that to tell, like what is this material made out of behind me, for those we get the data, and because in a moving world, this usually goes into a box. So you typically don't just like throw small items like that loose on a truck. So what really
Right.
matters for that domain is how many boxes do I need and what size. So for that, it can be hard to look at like tiny little knickknacks and things like that. So under a certain like size threshold in our industry, it matters more about like how many cartons do you need. So the algorithms are fine tuned for that. Because yeah, there's a long tail, and then also I think that human in the loop is really where things are powerful, because you'll never be able to automate everything, right? Like, is a ring gold plated or is it solid gold? So we still allow for notes, and the mover can still have a conversation with the customer.
Yeah.
But if you're relegated to those kinds of things that are really high value, we've actually found that makes the conversations like kind of more engaging, more relevant, because you're talking about the things that you care about that like mean a lot to you, whereas you're not asking about like, I don't know, how many pairs of socks do you have, or someone
Yeah.
like doesn't care so
Well,
much.
isn't there a huge variation between weights? Like a box of books is way heavier than a box of knickknacks. So, I mean, is it able to it's able to differentiate those?
Correct. Yeah. And I would say it's able to differentiate in the industry that we're in. So if you were to try to make like I don't know, a UPS scale replacement tool, or like take it into another domain, there are certain things that it would do well and certain things that it wouldn't. But with the moving case, generally what really matters is the total shipment weight. So people don't generally like cherry pick one item and put that on the scale and say, hi, you said it was 40 pounds, it's really 50, something's up here. Or like if you're shipping internationally and it's in container, that container size, or if you're in a truck, you know, when you're driving down the roads and it says like max weight for this truck, like the trucks generally have to go on weigh stations for Department of Transportation guidelines. So that's the kind of like granularity that we're working at. So we monitor each thing. Obviously, lots of small errors can accumulate into a big error, but not all errors are created equal. So things like miscounting things because it's trash day has like a huge variation. But
Yeah.
if I have a box of paperback books versus a box of hardcover books, these kinds of things, at least in our industry, like there are certain distinctions that don't matter as much, and that's where we've been like spending our engineering time on other areas. We always want to look at like what are the top 10 causes, and our view is that your top 10 complaints about your product, your top 10 like gripes that people wish it could do that it can't do, should be changing month over month, because that means that you're doing the right things. So it's like we're very open to hearing feedback, but kind of chasing down every possible rabbit trail doesn't really, like, you can't add up all these things and make like a corporate strategy out of it. So we look at it in terms of like how do we make it easier to use, how do we make it more applicable and wider amounts of use cases. And then once we start going down that road, when impediments come up like hey, you don't work on trash day, then we go out of our way to like build the solutions that make that get fixed.
So from when you first started to today, how has the sort of the computer vision landscape changed? I mean, has everything gotten a lot better? I mean, are we at the point where it can't get much better, or where are we at right now?
I would say it's kind of exhausting as of late because there's been so much. I feel like when I started, I'd go to dinner with friends and want to talk about AI, computer vision, and people usually moved on, didn't want to.
Yes, their eyes would glaze over, right?
But I feel like what's happened now is a few things have happened. I think the algorithms themselves have improved. I think that's made tooling around it better, which makes it easier to use. So if an academic researcher does a study and publishes a paper, that's kind of hard for a layperson to like do something with. But there's a lot of good instrumentation out there where there's open source code you can download and use, or there's services that are in many cases free or pretty close to free, where it's very inexpensive to use the technology. So I've seen a lot of progress in terms of just like maybe not all directly to consumer, but developer tools where it's easier to put it into your product. And then just what's happened in the generative space in the past couple of months has been exponentially faster than anything I probably could have anticipated.
Right.
And there are things like ChatGPT or Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, where the AI is not perceiving and like looking around and seeing what's there, but it's actually creating things. And that's just opening up like a whole new can of use cases that I feel like the world is still kind of digesting and grappling with and figuring out where does it work and where does it not work.
Right. Yeah. Can you use that in reverse to sort of improve your computer vision, determining what's out there?
It's a great idea. There are folks that do it. There's like there's papers published about it. There are companies that they call it synthetic data. So they'll basically make a data set that you can go and train your AI on. It can be useful for certain things, but you do need to be careful because you get sort of like an echo chamber problem where you like tell yourself what you want to see, then you train your AI, you think you're really good at it.
Right.
I've found the closer you can get to like real world use cases and scenarios, the better. A lot of this generative work, it tends to be trained on or look a lot like beautiful catalog imagery, which I don't know, I moved a couple of years ago. My house looked nothing like a beautiful catalog 2 weeks before I moved. It's everywhere. You have clothing all lying around. So it is useful for certain things where it's difficult to collect the actual data, but you just got to be really careful because unlike if you're taking real imagery, it's not always clear if you're veering off into like fantasy land,
Right.
because you could just be making up stuff. So it's powerful,
Yeah.
it's cool, but it's not a silver bullet, unfortunately.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, it can't do photorealistic images yet, because I mean, I've tried doing this thing on Twitter where I post a real image and I post a AI generated image. You can always tell. You can always tell, no matter how good the image is. I mean, it's a great image, but you can always tell it's not reality.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it will improve and things will change. My view though is that um and I worked in freelancing for a while before I started Yembo. And I feel like when you're freelancing, understanding what the client really wants is like 9/10 of the battle. So as long as clients are like not able to crisply articulate what exactly they want, I think the freelancers will still have jobs. Because when the AI makes mistakes, is you got to remember they're biologically inspired, but they are not biology. So the mistakes that AI makes are usually weird and like a human
Oh,
wouldn't.
tell
So
me
I
about it. Some of the hideous images that have come out of this, the ones I've been trying lately, have been insane. And sometimes the exact same prompt will give you a completely different and amazing image,
yeah,
or it'll give you something that's absolutely grotesque,
exactly.
and
I,
it's
I
freaky.
I have two favorites in the category of AI making not realistic mistakes, and that is kind of going back to it's how it's trained. And if you look at a lot of pictures of people, some things like most people have two eyes, it'll learn reasonably well, but fingers are often occluded. Like you might not see all of them; they're often occluded, and teeth also. So I had a
Yeah.
friend send me a picture. I forget the name of the tool, but she ran some selfies through an AI image generator and said like, "You got to update my contact photos. Check this out." And I did it. And like a day later, I messaged her back and said, "I'm sorry, I can't keep this on my phone. You have 3 front teeth and I can't see anything else anymore." No artist would ever do that, but the AI doesn't know better because it just sees a bunch of teeth. So it makes these kind of mistakes.
Well, yeah, I ran my profile picture through something, and it came back, and it was like it didn't look like me at all. It was like an alternate
Mhm.
reality version of me, which I didn't look like. I mean, it was nice and crisp and everything, and it was a little cartoony, which
Mhm.
was fun, but it definitely didn't look like me. It definitely lost a lot of the features. It looked like a different person. I thought it was like it was strange, but a lot of people love this kind of stuff, and they're just using it to update things. And I
Yeah,
don't.
I feel like yeah, for things like profile photos where I don't know, people probably wouldn't go like hire a professional in most cases to go make one. Like people, the shelf life is kind of short in most cases. But I feel like the use cases where you're brainstorming, where it's like okay to make a mistake. Like if I were to ask a designer, "Hey, we're launching a new product. I need a new logo. Can you like sketch 10 ideas?" Like it's okay if that comes back and it's not super refined.
Yeah.
So in those kinds of workflows where you're brainstorming, you want to kind of try a couple different things out, like it's maybe okay. But I feel like we're still not quite there where you could say like, I don't need any designers at all. Like I'm not
Yeah.
sure because it's also only been trained on historical data. So it can never really do like something new because it's only kind of predicting what it should do based on that body of work it's already seen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's what I always think is going to be. It's going to end up being the people who use it weren't going to hire a designer anyway, right? I mean,
mhm.
the ones who are going to hire a designer, they would probably not use it because what it generates isn't good enough for what they're looking for.
Yeah, but I could see a designer taking on more clients because now they don't have to sketch all these initial pieces. They can kind of like have a more relevant intake conversation and figure
Yeah.
out what this person actually want faster. Um, but that's why I encourage people to play around with it. And it's kind of easy to sit on the sideline and see something get posted and go, "Oh, I can tell that's fake," and like kind of be a critic. But there's just so much up for grabs right now that I feel like sitting this out is kind of like sitting out when the smartphone revolution happened in the 2010s and the internet
Yeah.
happened before it. So it's like you don't have to invent everything, but like just play around with it, understand what it can and can't do.
Yeah. Well, the thing I love about it, I think the most, and is that you can actually go from idea to a representation of the idea much faster, right? So
Mhm.
if you're thinking, like, let's say you're thinking about writing a book, right? You may have a topic and you might have an outline, but it can help you get the rest of it out, even if you have to heavily edit it to get it to the point where it's useful. So it definitely, you know, 5 times, 10 times as people's productivity, as long as they have that initial seed of an idea
Right.
from the human, because the seeds from the AI just aren't right yet.
Yeah, it's a great example. And I have a fun story we just recently did with this. So I believe we mentioned this before, but I actually have recently written a book. It's called Grow Up Fast, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
lessons learned from starting an AI company. It's on
Nice.
pre-order on Amazon now. It'll be launching on August 1st. but we did
I'll definitely put links in the show notes to the book. I want to read that. I'll buy
cool.
it.
Yeah, I'll send you send me your address afterwards. I'll send you a copy. But we did exactly this. So I'd never written a book before. I have managed people before, and I had kind of done a lot of mentoring, but I hadn't really like written in that format. So when I first wrote everything, I was done and I wasn't sure like, is this any good or not? So I did what we do in software, which is you find a group of users, in this case, like identifying your ideal readers, and you find them, and we sent the book out and we asked for a couple questions on the feedback form. And then the last question was like, if you had to rate this book on Amazon today, what would you rate it? And the first iteration I did about 9 months ago, when I thought I was done, I got a whopping 2.8 out of 5. We gave feedback, and if you're the kind of person that's filling out one of these forms, you're usually not just going to flame and move on. You usually give feedback. So we iterated, and then when we deemed it ready, it got up to 4.8. But in the process, I found it was really helpful to kind of check if you're on the right way, because it takes a while, right? If you finish it, you think you're done, you send it, okay, like 12 people read it, they're giving their feedback forms. So it's kind of fun to we'd ask ChatGPT, assume you're writing a 1-star review on this chapter, paste. What would be some of the reasons why? And then like you can look at it and you can ask yourself, is this helpful? Like, do I agree with that? Is that a valid critique? Is it not? So having it like kind of role play AI like as a role playing person for you, as opposed to just like, hi AI, write a book for me, that would probably make no sense and no one would want to read anyway.
Yeah.
Has been pretty interesting, where there's a lot of use cases that I found that are like that. We also have some folks that work with like different communication styles. Some people write longer messages with more context, some people write shorter ones. So we have some people in our team that are asking like, rewrite this in the style of Zach, to like see, is it easier to come across in the style of other people? So I sort of think of it as like a infinitely patient tutor, where you can like constantly ask questions and it never gets fed up.
Exactly. I think we're going to get to the point, though. I don't know if you've seen that cartoon, the 2-panel one, where in the first panel, somebody has a headline and they write a huge blog post on the headline. And then the second panel is like, summarize this into one line.
Does it end up back at the headline, or is it something?
Yeah, it ends up back at the same headline.
I could see that being like Game of Telephone, where it like veers off into a strange direction. Cool.
Awesome. So it's time to take a look at the future. It's 10 years out, the year 2033. Where do you think things are going to be in 10 years in your space and in AI and computer vision in general?
I think we'll probably stop talking about AI, sort of like how we don't think about mobile computing as much, just kind of there and we use it, and the need to label it will probably have gone. I am generally an optimist. I mean, if you look at all the other times some big disruptive technology has come in, it's made more jobs, not less. And I feel like it'll be, what one person will be able to do is going to be mind-boggling by today's standards.
Oh, yeah.
Even just like 6 months ago to now, these kinds of things that can happen is already incredible. But 10 years down the road, it's just so far down the road that I feel like we'll probably have quite a few, I don't know if the term will still be around, but these solopreneurs, like people that are just one person.
I hate that term, but you know, that's where I see things going. I see a lot of people getting into that space, because if you think about it, startup founders, you know, you think about a startup, you've got the technical founder, you've got the marketing person, you've got the, you know, everyone has their particular skill set. But nowadays, if you're missing one of those skill set, you can leverage some AI to do that piece for you. Really.
Exactly. Yeah, where I think before people would just kind of ignore it. I mean, I'm an engineer. A lot of my friends in school were engineers, and like a couple of us in our dorm rooms, we wanted to like make extra money by building websites for other people. So we'd like make a marketing website and put it up, and then just stop, because like
nobody would go.
Then like, shocker, like the only 3 people who visited were me, my mom, and my roommate. So I feel like these kinds of things where you can ask it, like, what are some reasonable outreach channels? I'm willing to spend X dollars, or I'm not willing to spend anything. Where it lowers the barrier to entry, and it lowers the barrier to entry in areas that are valuable. I mean, that's why people are spending time and resources in building tools that make it easier. Is it's not just like an academic toy kind of thing. It's like a very real, helpful thing. So again, I think definitely keep a human in the loop until things get to be 100%. I mean, we've been talking about it as an industry for self-driving cars for how long now, and they're still not quite here. And that's just because those long tails, those edge cases come up, and until the algorithms can handle everything, it's not going to be 100.
But human beings can't handle everything. I can't imagine how they expect algorithms to handle everything. I mean, it's kind of like when I was using ChatGPT to help me write a book. I'm writing this time travel science fiction novel, and it was great at first, but then it started forgetting things about my characters. It would forget it would forget these attributes. It would forget when it was born. It would forget this. I'm like, this is an AI. It should be remembering everything, but it's almost as fallible. It's as fallible as us because it's basically designed on us. So wouldn't it be as fallible as we are?
Yeah, and I think that's the issue is it has these mistakes, it has the flaws baked in, but it's presented often in a way that is kind of final, right? Like when you made your profile picture, you didn't get back like an Illustrator file that you could change if you wanted to. It's done. It's like, here's the JPEG, post this on social.
That's right.
And I feel like there's a disconnect there between like what it's capable of doing and what you're able to work with on the end. And that's I think it's just a sign that we're in early days. I think there will be more and more kind of tooling baked in, things like that. Just training our AI for the first years, we didn't have any third-party tools we could buy even if we wanted to. So like we had to build our own infrastructure for pulling down data, for annotating, for training, evaluating. And there have been tools that have come out since then, but I feel like it lags for some time. It takes the world time to catch up. And I feel like it's not really fair. Like if we were born 10,000 years ago, plus or minus a couple thousand years, our lives wouldn't have looked a whole lot different. But if you're born in like 2000 plus or minus 10 years, things are dramatically different. So it's just like a virtue of the times that we're living in.
Yeah. When if you think about it, Facebook and Twitter and smartphones were born in 2008. So that's not even 20 years ago. It's insane how quickly things have moved on, and it's just going to get more and more rapid. So I just love to see what's going to happen next, and I hope we use all this technology for good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we'll get there, because I mean I think a lot of the things that are happening right now in this space, like there's like an inherent network effect to amplify good things. Like if people do something that is awesome, then other people want to know about it. Like there's an economic incentive to be like, hey, I can be more efficient doing this. And I mean, software is a tool. There are good and bad tools or good and bad ways to use existing tools. But I feel like like you don't see people like banning hammers because you can hit someone with it. Like it's a construction tool. But where I'm going with all of that is that I feel like we already have a society that amplifies when good things are done with it. And that I feel like we got to let it play out a bit. And yeah, it's good to have guardrails. It's good to have like safety mechanisms in there. But I feel like we would leave something on the table if we were to just get scared and not want to touch something. Because all it takes is one person to be curious, they'll figure it out. And then the world will have to grapple with what comes up next. So that's why I encourage everybody to tinker. I'd much rather live in a world where 10,000 people have access to things that weren't possible a year ago than it being like concentrated in a couple like huge tech companies. So that's why
absolutely, because the innovation is everywhere. I mean, and ideas are everywhere, and everyone has the ability to come up with something. I mean, everyone sees issues and they try to solve problems, right? And being able to disseminate the solutions faster is always amazing.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also fun to like experiment without like a commercial goal in mind. So I have a 5 and we used I think it's a meta tool that animates things, so you can draw whatever like creature you want, and it will you take a picture of it on your phone, and it has AI that detects like what its skeletal structure will be, and you can make it like run and jump and bounce. And I can't animate, but like this kid, he's coming to me and he's like, hey, draw a stick figure, give him a party hat, and then have him like jump on a trampoline. And like 30 seconds later, you have something. Now, I'm sure if you were a professional animator, you'd look at it, you'd find issues and stuff, but it's like what that's doing for creativity for people that are just learning how the world works. It's like it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember a long time ago when I was with Yahoo, we were talking about a concept called computer assisted creativity, where, I mean, that's a highly technical term for the AI helps you do stuff, right? And we're just seeing more and more of that happening. And it can only be a good thing for us, because I think people are dreaming these things, and they're looking at all the work required to create, And it's just so much work. And if he can sort of ease that path, then we'll see more good stuff come out.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like we have simple versions of these things already in the world today. I mean, if you use autocorrect on your keyboard, strictly speaking, that's like an algorithm telling you it's finishing your sentences for you.
Exactly.
Built in a proper way so it doesn't feel intrusive or annoying. But when you take a picture on your phone, there's a million parameters about like focal length, white balance, and a lot of times modern phones, they'll detect a face and then just like set everything for you. So I feel like these are the things that really make it like easier to do something, where if I want to take a picture with my family, I don't really care about like what's the F number and all that kind of stuff. But if you just make it easier to get the right thing by default, and these are basic. So you ask 10 years down the road, who has any idea? But like, I think more of those kinds of things at larger and larger scales.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Chris. So my email is really easy. It's Zach, Z-A-C-H, at Yembo, YEMBO.ai.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Bye now.
Bye.